Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Welcome back to the theatre for our last little bit of the day. I'm Simone. I'm on the UXCamp organising committee, but I'm double hatting a little bit today. I'm also with Mantle Group. So we are a silver sponsor of this event, and we're pretty excited to be so. Came along last year. It was awesome. Even better this year. You'll have a... Has that gone off? No? Okay. As you can tell, I'm super smooth with the microphone too. So in your little swag bags, there's also a little card with a QR code. At Mantle, we're going to hold a little meetup next Friday, the 25th. We'll just kind of have some coffees, have some pastries, and continue the chats about some of the topics today. So if that's something you're keen on being involved in, there's a little QR code in your swag bag, so just RSVP and come along. But without further ado, what we're all here today to listen to this afternoon is our wonderful Locknote. So next up we have Sean Brown, who loves words, loves design, and today he's here to talk about both.
Can everyone hear me okay? Yes, okay. First, I'd like to start with a bit of an acknowledgement of country. I want to start by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the people of the land we stand on today. I'd like to pay my respects to leaders past, present, and emerging. I acknowledge Aboriginal land was never ceded. Sovereignty was never ceded. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. So, I did not expect to be up here whatsoever. I thought I was going to have a cozy little room and I'll talk about my little nest of content and maybe there'll be a couple of people who are interested in it. But I think maybe I pitched a little too well. And I'm and I'm a bit worried I've oversold and will underdeliver, but we'll see how we go. This presentation, if I want to be honest, this is the presentation I wish a younger version of myself was able to hear. I didn't understand anything about content and how that could intersect with UX and digital product design. I thought I had to be something else. But I realized that this comfy thing that's been going through my entire life, words, was the latent skill that I had and I could use for my career. And I want to make people aware of that. I want to make people who love poetry, love journaling, love journalism, love anything with words, that there's a career for you in digital product design. And yeah. But basically, the actual content of this presentation is a bunch of stuff I ripped off LinkedIn. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm Sean. My actual title at Jetstar, where I work, we have a content team. I'm a content producer in technical worlds. So I've lied to you all. I've somehow found my way into this room of designers. When I introduce myself at parties, I call myself a UX writer, and actually I work on the Jetstar app primarily. Basically, all the words in the Jetstar app are me, so if you have complaints, please let me know. Not about flight cancellations, though. That's not my problem. And if I'm feeling really frisky and want to call myself a designer, I will call myself a content designer. And you'll see that there is a big difference between what UX writing and content design actually is. But as we know from some of the presentations before today, what the hell even is design, right? So to be honest, I don't really care about that title either. I know in my core of core that I am a writer designer. I use words, I use language to help people, to create experiences, to collaborate with members of my team, to hopefully make the world just a little bit brighter. That's my aim. But it took me a bit of a convoluted journey to get there. So I'll tell you about that in the form of a slam poem. I genuinely wrote this morning. I thought, I was like, maybe I could just like create some random poetry and people might like that. But I even got like, can you play the music, DJ? It was a lonely winter in Tokyo. I'd moved, just quit my job. A hard-boiled role as a technical writer, something I didn't love. I'd been studying design. I was instilled with the ideal. Yes, I want to auto-layout things and bring dreams into real. but there was something holding me back. Not just a relationship falling apart. Staring at empty Figma artboards labeled portfolio. For days in my boxy share house room, something didn't feel right. And so one rainy eve, I went to a nondescript building, a design event run by Creative Tokyo. And that's where something destined happened. I accidentally unsynced the music, sorry. I met Beatrice Holland, my first design hero of today, content design manager at Indeed, the first content designer who planted the seed that would bloom into fruition of what I can really be. I realized all my human experiences are connected. Journaling, poetry, mountains of paper, a childhood of unfinished stories, and a half-drawn manga. Latent within me, I'd always been a storyteller. Aha, now I've found my path forward, writer designer. And now I work at Jetstar. Bright orange, my favorite color. My words help people get places, see loved ones, go on their next adventure. And maybe, just maybe, hopefully stop hating us a little less. That meeting with Beatrice changed my trajectory, made me realize there's a place for words and design and all things product-y. I want to share that forward and let it be known that if you love words in the world of product, you're not alone. You can stop the music now. So, okay, that was the fun part. Now I get into the boring part about what actually is content. Or maybe it is a bit fun. I have some very weird examples. Can anyone put your hand up if you know what this is, please? Any weebs out there? Good. So this is a manga called One Punch Man. It sold like 30 million copies, like very, very popular. Not as One Piece popular, but very, very popular. But the author of One Punch Man, his pen name is One, has a really interesting story. He was not trained as an artist. He had to balance a 9-to-5 job. He had to balance lots of health difficulties. He had a lot of struggles, a lot of like imposter syndrome, I suppose, for a manga author. But he still put his work out there onto like a webcomic service, actually. And this is one of the early chapters of One Punch Man. I've removed all the words for dramatic effect. Obviously, the art's really endearing. I actually find it really lovely, but you wouldn't call this professional grade illustration. But despite that, One Punch Man became so extraordinarily popular. And it wasn't because of the container. It wasn't because of the images. It was because of the story. It was because of the words. It's because of the story he was trying to tell, this strange, funny story about a bald guy who's way too super powerful. And that got picked up and turned into a great, polished product that One Punch Man is now, the manga and the anime. Okay, so how the hell does that connect to content? Maybe your mind's thinking. So content, in a pretty bland sense, is, I stole this from somewhere on the internet, meaningful information expressed through a medium for human use. And even though I'm talking a lot about words, content is not just words. It can be videos, it can be images, it can be metadata, it can be calculator. I mean, content people, we like to try and kind of get in there and start to own more things. So I like to say it's everything. Today, I'll talk about words, but to me, content is the story. Just like One Punch Man, without those words, without that story, it's just a bunch of scribbles on the page. But with content, it becomes something powerful. It becomes something valuable. It becomes something that helps people. And that's why I think content is amazing. I'm going to go speed run through some great examples, but I don't know if anyone's seen this, but this is the Gov.uk website. One of the pioneers of content design, Sarah Winters, her team worked on this a long time ago and really set the standard for what great content design is. And you can see this is vanilla as hell. But it's so vanilla, it's beautiful. Because it really helps users fulfill the purpose that they're looking for. It guides them in the most simplest way, using words, using great hierarchy, using information architecture, great breadcrumbs. I mean, that's very basic, fundamental, great content design. Some other content design that gets a bit, this is not that whimsical, but you've probably seen these in privacy messages and things like that. I really love the Guardian's kind of bland, but kind of we are a wankery journalism kind of thing tone that they have. So you run the kind of gamut from that very, very cold, kind of very informative content to something like this, to something like this headspace. I put this in here because I knew I'd be running a bit fast and I want to breathe in, and on the out breath, go back and try again. So that's, again, some more flavorful stuff. This is from Slack, and I'll get to him later. This is written by Andrew Schmidt, currently a content designer. I think he mainly works on FigJam, but he used to work for Slack. Everyone's used Slack, right? And they think that the UX writing is awesome. Hopefully everyone agrees. But it's because they have great process. It's because they involve their content designers all the way along the journey. It doesn't force writers to put just words in that box there. It allows writers to turn it into 3 boxes. What a great liberty we've got. And here's some more, of course, from Slack. And yeah, so that's Andrew. That's content design hero number 2. I hope people are taking notes. Next slide. OK, and then sometimes we get it wrong. This is, I don't know if anyone's encountered this when you're canceling a Jira ticket. I think by default, it is set up to be cancel, cancel, which is just kind of bizarre. And you can change it in user settings and stuff like that. But very strange kind of content in that regard. This is my favorite one from recently. This is Acrobat recently got a big overhaul, and this little banner came up on my Adobe Acrobat, and I thought I should take a screenshot. I never knew I'd be talking about it to such a big crowd. But I'll read it out. Try the new, more intuitive Acrobat before transitioning seamlessly to this experience soon. Learn more. It gets worse. We have this Excel one here. Want to keep save changes in file name. Only saving changes in the copy will restore file name to the version you first opened. Cancel, discard in original, keep in original. OK, you kind of like need to read it 5 times, right, to actually get it. And obviously, you can just get lost if the content isn't right. So this is something from Rachel McConnell. Again, more stuff stolen from LinkedIn. Everyone probably knows this process pretty well, I imagine. We're all designers of some sort in the room. And you can see here that there is a lot of things that content, not can be, should be involved in. Content people come from really, really diverse backgrounds. Many people come from journalism. They've seen the world. I know people who've worked at Al Jazeera. People who have worked I used to work as a technical writer in infrastructure, right? There's a lot that we provide for a different form of empathizing and understanding with people. When it comes to ideation, content people not only are great creative minds, but we know the restrictions that are in place with content management systems, how long a string should be, all those kind of things. And if we're given an opportunity, we'll ask, can we break that? Can we have more boxes? Can we display the content in a completely different way? Can we deliver it in a different way? Those are conversations that can be done in the earlier stages. That's content design. But what often content design gets boiled down to is, so we have this button. Can you write the copy for it and get legal sign-off by tomorrow? We often get boiled down to just this part here. Just writing the words and getting stakeholder sign-off. And I really want to change that. I really want to make that not only something that budding content designers are aware of how big a role they can play, but also anyone else who is, I guess, a more traditional UX designer, to work more closely with your content people and involve them in the entire design process. So again, I have more examples of silly stuff. I'm going to read this out. This is something that I have experienced. So yeah, hi. So when users unsubscribe from a marketing emails, they keep getting issues for another 14 days or so, and 5% of the time it won't unsubscribe them all. The bug is definitely on our roadmap to fix, but insert backlog priority bubble. So anyway, I heard you're a genius with words. Could you wordsmith a little something explaining how customers might get 2 or 3 more emails, and also that sometimes they might have to log out and sign back in and click unsubscribe again? Also, please make it mobile friendly, 20 words or less, and sign off by tomorrow. So again, you can see that here, this is really, again, this is panic because we forgot about the content. But when you put a content designer in that position where actually the restrictions are challenging, the content is hard to write, and you get those really screwed up experiences, it points to a deeper structural problem. It points that you haven't involved content earlier in the process. It points to that you haven't worked out the process properly at all, right? You haven't gone through, you've gotten all the points of view that are available. So yeah, in fact, Andrew Smith, one of his kind of points is really that content is actually easy to write when you're able to have the right collaboration, the right process in place. Content writing, content design, UX writing, it shouldn't actually be made to be hard. One thing I'll mention again, content people kind of end up at the butt of all of the stakeholder engagement, because words can often be more sensitive than anything else. So I know there's a few people who work in government around here, and I work at Jetstar, a big, large enterprise organization, which feels like we're on the news every month or so. But words are incredibly sensitive, and so stakeholders are gonna have a lot of say around it, particularly around legal stuff. So when I see this, I think it's easy for us to laugh at content like this. But when I saw this pop up on my Adobe Acrobat, I just had a lot of sympathy for the content person that had to write this. Because I know that there was a dozen stakeholders that said, make it sound new and shiny. Make sure they're not scared off their pants. We don't know the exact release date, though, so just put a vague soon there, please. Also, write a help article for us. And again, as I said, you're going to have a lot of stakeholders involved when you're creating content. And I mean, as you know, I love poetry and really lame and wanky words and stuff like that. But it's easy to get fixated on an ideal of what your content will be. But what you have to realize is you operate within a business. We have customers that we need to tailor. You have to divorce yourself from that ideal that you have about how beautiful words should be and make sure they serve their purpose. So this content designer at Acrobat were really doing their best to serve the purpose. So much of content is also about organizing information. And I have another weird manga reference. So does anyone know this guy? I'm feeling the generational gap in this room. So when I was younger, I was a big fan of Naruto. Now I want a different set of hands. Who here has experienced dial-up internet? That's more like it. When I was a kid, I loved Naruto, and I wanted to watch the anime so bad, but I did not have broadband internet. All I had was dial-up internet. And so I used to download zip files of JPEGs of the manga, illegally translated and distributed across the internet. Here's a good site for that, but please don't tell anyone that I told you. And so I would download a file. And then it's downloaded. And you'd think a normal person would just start reading the manga. But instead, I unzipped that file, and I folderized it. And then I broke down all that big cluster of JPEGs into more folders for each chapter. And then I'm not going to go even deeper, but I actually labeled each individual page and then tagged them with all their different metadata and all those things like that. It was a great time in Windows XP for me. And recently, the hard drive that held all of that pirated manga disappeared. It crashed, actually. And I thought, what the hell was I spending my childhood on? But actually, I was preparing myself for my future job. Because content is not just creating content. It is also archiving content. We are also librarians and organizers of content. And if you're this kind of level of strange like me, then content could be for you. As an example, this is the Jetstar help page at the moment. I'm not going to say it's great, but we are working through essentially rejigging all of the information architecture with this. And this is a really content-led initiative. I'm scaling down all of these different topics into a set of, let's say, 8. We're going to go through users, ideally, with some card sorting activities. These are all content-led design processes. And not only this, right? Not only in terms of facing the user, but regarding CMSs and archiving information. And at Jetstar, we atomize all of our content so that it can be reused in a variety of different places. But of course, managing that, especially for an enterprise organization, is insane, right? There's a lot that goes into that. So again, if that really sparks your brain, then please consider content. You might hear, of course, content people talk a lot about voice and tone. And again, many people here, I'm sure they've worked in marketing and things like that and probably are pretty familiar with this. But I want to kind of articulate this in a very simple way. Voice is how I'm speaking, like how Sean Brown just speaks in English. Tone is how I modulate my voice, right? I'm speaking quite professionally here, well, semi-professionally, I suppose. If I talk to my mom, I'm not going to swear as much as I talk to my friends. If I'm talking to, a baby, my cat, or something like that, it's going to be very different, right? But context is incredibly important about how you deliver that tone, right? And here I have a kind of cool example. So as I said, I work on the Jetstar app, and we've been going through adjusting the home screen and these welcome messages. And when you think of Jetstar, actually, I'm going to just put it to the crowd. What kind of voice do you think of Jetstar? Give me some opinions. Give me some feedback. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, I love it. I love it. Yeah. Anyone else out there? Does anyone remember like that? Like, let's do it. Let's fly Jetstar, right? So we're changing all of this so that the logic, like many other modern apps, it says good morning, good day, good night, and things like that. And of course, our initial thought is to say good day, right? We're Australian, we're Jetstar, we're bright, we're orange, right? But in the context of the collapse of various parts of the airline industry, becoming associated with good day is not really where we want to be, actually. We don't want to fall into the bucket of Bonza and Rex and other organizations who this was the most g'day airline we've ever had in Australian history, right? So yeah, it's very important to consider those things, not just the industry landscape as well becomes very important. Lastly of this section, are we using plain language? So are we using language that anyone can understand? I'll talk a little bit about people who are native English speakers, not native English speakers, really making language accessible and easy to understand. That is a craft in itself to get things as clear as possible. Are we using inclusive language to get people, I'll just go to my example, because this one kind of hits close to home for me, about inclusive language. I don't know does anyone know this? I would be so surprised if someone knows what this app is. Fantastic. Oh, you do? Yes. ¿Cómo está? So Gcash is the leading fintech app in the Philippines. During COVID, the Philippines went through a huge process to become cashless, kind of rapidly, actually, and Gcash kind of rose to the fore at that. And I spent last year in the Philippines. My mum is Filipino, and I spent a bit of time, I had a bit of a stint over there, and I wanted to be cool and cashless like I am in Australia. So I decided to sign up for Gcash. And this is the initial part of the sign-up process. And other than my birthday, which is fine, I was confronted with this question. Are you a Filipino? And, okay, my name's Sean Brown, and I look like this. Most people would not think I'm Filipino, but my body is built on pork adobo and pancit, and even though I've wrangled with this identity challenge so long throughout my life, I know that I'm Filipino, and I hold that really close to heart. And I was in the Philippines there with my entire family, right? What more obvious evidence is there? But, so how do I answer this question though? Because I wanted to say yes. And I did say yes. But that ended me actually getting an account in 2 weeks because I went through a terrible identification process. I had multiple calls with the customer care team about who I am, what my identity is, why am I in the Philippines. And ultimately, I had to go all the way back to the start of the flow and say, are you a Filipino? No. And that was really painful. And that's one piece of copy. And that's why trying to write and understand people, the diversity that we have across the world, is so important. And as a content designer, I think it's one of the most critical skills that we can have. So yes, sorry for my sob story. Lastly, we have, oh, I'm going good for time. Lastly, some content myths that I wanted to bust. Okay. Content's not that important. No one reads. People just scan, right? And to be honest, I would agree with this. I am not going to refute that. I think copy that is kind of invisible and just really is very plain, very clear, and guides the user in a very easy way, similar to the GovUK example that I showed you. I think that's fantastic. So I don't mind if people are scanning my content. But content is the most critical thing when things go wrong. Content is the last line of defense before someone picks up the phone and is on the customer care hotline, before they are working with chatbots, right? Which is just another way of delivering content. So this is so critical to understand that content is not just the words on the page. It is all these little error messages and dialog boxes that I spend hours agonizing over. But when I write these, I really think of that person at the airport who is struggling for time, who wants to go on that journey to see their loved one. How can I give them the most direct, clear guidance to get them to where they want to be? So yeah. Myth number 2. Oh, so you're a copywriter, is what I often get asked. And I mean, technically, yeah, I do write copy, right? But traditionally, copywriters have been heavily involved in marketing, right? And I have incredible respect for copywriters. I think they are way wittier and way funnier than I am, and they get paid not as well as they should be. But as you can see from what I've just talked about, there's a different skill in writing to sell and writing to help. And sometimes I will put on my old marketing hat, and I'll be like, this is a bit fun. I'm going to write some marketing copy. This is a great time. But yeah, please don't confuse them. And as I said, probably some content people are quietly getting offended when you call them copywriters, but they won't speak up. So that's why I'm here. Myth number 3, you have to be a native English speaker. So at Jetstar, we do a lot of localization work. This is the Jetstar app in Japanese. And we have a Japan team. We have a content person in Japan. And I work really closely with her to get our copy effectively localized. Localization is different to translation, right? Translation, you put something in, Google Translate, and what it spits out, that's translation, right? But localization is delivering it so that it delivers the nuance that customers are looking for within that particular region. I think how I would think about it, who here speaks a second language? Who here feels like they have a different personality when they speak the other language? Right? And remember what I talked about, voice and tone, right? It's like you have separate voices across those different experiences across language. So yeah, at Jetstar, as I said, Japanese, we're really focused on localization. But we have 5 or 6, if you include the different variations of Chinese, that we also cater for. And this we do not localize these. These are just translated. And that's really unfortunate that not even a large business like Jetstar has the resources to deliver the nuance that we want to our customers around the world. So if you speak a second language, content is an amazingly fruitful career because it blends your idea of understanding people across cultures and delivering them the content that is right. Secondly, I want to talk about being a non-native speaker, because I think this is an incredible advantage if you want to get into content design, because you have truly lived experience of what difficult, unclear content is and what the ramifications of that are. I know some people, probably second language speakers, have used government services, have used banking. What the hell does this alert mean? I can't understand it. That's why we want you as content designers. You understand that pain more than a native speaker. And you're not like me, who fills your words with all flowery stuff from the dictionary and blows things out. So yeah, I think anyone who is a non-native English speaker and speaks multiple languages, content is an amazing place where you can blend that with design and your understanding of the user experience. Myth number 4, you have to know Figma. Because we're designers as well, right? Content designers, please let us be designers too. And honestly, content people, especially very traditional content people, really like Word docs and spreadsheets, is how we often think. But I think having the skills to collaborate visually is really important. You don't have to be a prodigy at Figma, but being able to in situ your copy and show it around to the rest of the design team, to the rest of your stakeholders, is really, really powerful. Because that makes you not just a words person. That makes you truly part of this big design family that we love. So yeah, I love this little graphic. This is from Tali, who works at Canva. Lastly, this is my last section. AI has stolen our job already. I get this a lot. You say, I work in content. Oh, so AI's just, you're not going to have a job soon, right? And there's kind of 2 parts that I want to talk about this. Firstly, I actually love all of the large language models, especially Claude. Shout out to Claude. He's a creative guy. But they really do help with content and kind of breaking you out of your rut, if that makes sense. We have so many different variations of copy that we work on when we are trying to get the message right. So having large language models to help out, assist with that, get variations is great. But they don't understand the context very well. In fact, I spend more time sometimes writing out the context to ChatGPT or Claude. I could have just written the content myself. But in that use, I think they are really helpful for your job, and you should be using them. Don't feel embarrassed to use them. But the second point is more larger about future trends of the industry. Because obviously AI is coming in a big way, has come, I suppose. And a lot of these large language models, well, they use language. It's in the name. And who are the most proficient people at language? Content people. Content is what feeds large language models. And especially within enterprise organizations, creating your chatbot or things like that, content people will be creating the content that it draws from. Not only that, content people, or I know conversation design, I don't know if there's any conversation designers in the audience, but conversation designers are essentially, to me at least, and please don't be insulted, a type of content designer, right? You're designing a conversation. You're designing words that the chatbot is delivering, that AI is delivering. So content people are actually at the epicenter of AI and design and user experience. So I think we're actually in an awesome place more than anything. I have a few last little bits. Here's some books to read. Again, people take photos or notes if you're interested. These are the big 3 that really helped me work out where I wanted to go in my career. Lastly, some people to know, some other content heroes that I'd like to shout out. Tali runs in the Canva offices, maybe every quarter or so, a content meetup where she talks to a particular guest about content and a variety of content challenges and issues and topics. Ben, the principal content designer at Canva, primarily centered around LLMs, AI, and how that intersects with content. He worked on the Gemini model at Google, and he just had a talk yesterday. V. Sri, I love his blog. It's called Micro Principles, and the part about the product manager that I talked about as well, that's from him and Chelsea Larson's blog called Smallish Book, which is about content, writing, and philosophy in general, because we're like that. But his article about I am a writer-designer is essentially what I stole at the start of this presentation. That really helped me discover who I was. And these are the three authors of the books I just mentioned. Lastly, some places you can get involved in. This is a global group working in content. They hold the Growing in Content online conference every year, which I try to go to if the hours aren't too weird. But we do have some presenters there from Australia that come, which are great. And we are Content Strategy and Design is an online group. You can find them on meetups, and they're Melbourne-based. So please join them if you're interested. And thanks.